Hi guys, and welcome to the Marc the Shark MMA show. Appreciate you guys watching me here on my Twitch channel. And don't forget, please follow me. If you happen to have an Amazon Prime account, you can subscribe for free. And also make sure you follow me on my social media accounts, including the Marc the Shark MMA show, YouTube channel, the Marc the Shark MMA show, Facebook channel. My Twitch channel is Marc BJJ Fighter. And my Instagram is Marc_Retorto. And don't forget, it's Marc with a C and not a K. And don't forget to visit the website where you can sign up to be a guest, you can sign up to become a sponsor, or you can shop. Get fabulous hoodies and t-shirts like the one I'm wearing right here. Not too shabby, right? And also you can make a donation. And also don't forget that I also have a podcast that comes out either on iHeartRadio, Stitcher, Podbean, pretty much everywhere. I have a new episode that comes out every Friday or Sunday, depending on how the week goes. And then I'll be here on Twitch every Saturday, so make sure you watch me every single Saturday on this channel. All right, guys, stay tuned and watch the show and enjoy it.
Guys, if you're watching us on YouTube, make sure you hit the subscribe button on our YouTube channel and hit the alert button so you get updates. And also, you can follow us on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. This podcast episode is brought to you by Defense Soap. Defend what you have built. Save 15% with the code Marc the Shark MMA Show, used by all jiu-jitsu and MMA athletes to prevent skin infections. This podcast is also brought to you by Audible. Go to www.audibletrial.com/MMA Show, and you get a free audiobook when you sign up for a 30-day trial. This episode is also brought to you by HostGator. Save 60% on your web hosting needs by using the promo code Marc the Shark MMA Show. Again, save 60% on your web hosting needs with HostGator. This podcast episode is also brought to you by Retorto Family Books. If you're interested in great books for your children to read, get books by Christina Retorto. And if you're interested in action, thriller, suspense books, you can get The Cabal, The Saga Begins, or fantasy books like Marcus the Vampire, both written by your host, Marc the Shark Retorto. Again, go to www.retortofamilybooks.com. Also, do not forget to go to the Marc the Shark MMA Show podcast website, the shop for our merchandise. We got t-shirts, hoodies, tank tops, hats, and even mugs. Anything you can want with the Marc the Shark MMA Show podcast name on it. And also, please do not forget to go to our website where you can make a donation to support the podcast. All you have to do is click on the donation button. All right, everybody, I'm back on the show. Today we got a very special guest, MMA journalist Matthew Salzer. How you doing today?
I'm doing pretty good. How are you doing, Marc?
Good. Now, Matthew, you're also the editor-in-chief, editor for MMA Freak, right? .com. I think I said
yes, the senior editor.
Senior editor. So how's that going? How'd you get into that?
Do you want the long story?
The short story.
Okay, so short story. I got out of I graduated from college in 2011 from Missouri Baptist University, go Spartans. And so I wasn't. I thought I went for education, but then realized I didn't have the temperament for it. So I just spent 4 years getting a degree for something that I ultimately realized I wasn't cut out for. So I was kind of just waffling around trying to figure out what to do. And coming off of, I'd actually, with some family members, tried to get involved in a small business, which took the whole summer of like 2013. And it didn't work out. But right at the end of this, I was looking online like I had for so many things, and I found a advertisement for MMA Freak to come and write for them. Well, I looked at some of the what's it called, the requirements, and I was just like, well, I don't meet these, but I was like, you know what? What the heck? I sent the message, applied anyways. And and Gabriel Keith is one of the founders, and to this day, he's still officially the editor-in-chief, even though he isn't involved a whole lot. But he said, I like your resume, and I'd like to ask you to come on board. So at that point, I started writing, and about a year later, that's when he started transitioning away. He was getting involved in some other personal projects, and he named me the senior editor, and that's essentially the job I've had ever since then. And I've brought people on board, they've left. We've had some highs and lows with the site, but we're still going, and we've been going a lot longer than some sites that I've written for. MMA Freak's not the only site. It's the first and it's the longest, but it's not the only site that I've written for. I've written for a few other sites, and some of them came and went, and then some of them don't even cover MMA anymore. Like I've written for this. Wrote for this site called What Culture, which is a UK-based site, but they cover a lot of stuff, and they don't even cover MMA anymore. So
Interesting.
it's just some of the stuff that I've done.
And then I think when I was on your website, I noticed that, are you involved with the podcast, like Sitting Ringside or Beyond the Cage at all, or?
Those were sites those were podcasts that I think at one point we were affiliated with. I haven't appeared on any of those. I think Gabe may have appeared on it, and maybe our former podcasters, Ben McPhee or Tiger Taylor, maybe appeared on it. Maybe some people probably did appear on it, but we still do kind of keep those links just as a sign of our affiliation with them, but I personally haven't interacted with them.
Okay. Wow. That's cool. Now, just curious, how does that website generate revenue for you guys? Is it just through advertisements? Like you sell advertising, or?
We have sold advertising in the past. Ultimately this is my hobby. I haven't made a whole lot from it. It's, I have a day job, but which I should note, has in and of itself also varied over time. But ultimately this is my hobby. The one of the co-founders, Justin Horner, he's got his own business, so and he's the one who usually pays for the upkeep. But yeah, we have sold advertising in the past. We're open for any advertising right now. We don't really have any sponsors per se. We've had some Google AdSense, but
never know. After this airs, you may get some. Yeah. Now, do you guys affiliate yourselves with any particular MMA fighters in particular, or either on the amateur or professional circuit, or?
An interesting thing, before Ashley Yoder actually went into the Ultimate Fighter, we actually got an interview with her back when she was an up-and-comer on the regional circuit with Team Quest. So we've gotten some interviews. We've definitely got some interviews on some fighters before they made. I think we talked about to Tom Galecchio also before he went on to the Ultimate Fighter. So we've talked to some people. I actually am a longtime acquaintance with Tatiana Suarez since before she was even in the Ultimate Fighter. We actually were acquaintances. So here was the thing. I'm currently living in Central California, but I have most of my life I was based in Southern California. Tatiana Suarez, who I knew as Tatiana Padilla at the time, was a wrestler for Northview. I was wrestling for Villa Park. I think she was a year or two below me, but either way, I knew about her. I'm not sure she knew about me until we coincidentally both ended up in the Midwest, because I went to Missouri Baptist university to wrestle, and she went to Lindenwood. Lindenwood at our time was our crosstown rivals.
Okay.
Since then, Lindenwood's moved up from NAI to NCAA Division II, so we don't interact as much. But that's just but yeah, I've interacted with her multiple times before. Haven't actually gotten an interview with her just yet as a UFC fighter, but we've talked on and off. So
Okay. That's pretty interesting.
Yeah.
Now, what's your take on the Khabib and Ferguson fight? Do you think that UFC 249 is actually going to happen, or what are your thoughts on that?
It's very possible it could happen. Whether they're going to make it like the main event interim title fight or not, I got no idea. So here's what I use as justification for why I think it will happen. So even though there's regulation involved and we don't, there's not a whole lot of commissions regulating MMA right now, the WWE in Florida is hosting their Raw, SmackDown, NXT tapings all at their in-house performance center where they do all their their developmental training, and then on top of that they're planning on doing WrestleMania there. So I think I think it can be done. I think it's doable. I think doing closed doors event is doable.
Okay.
I like the original idea of them doing everything at the UFC Apex, but then of course
that's what I thought they were going to do.
Yeah, but then the Nevada State Athletic Commission said, "Oh, well, we're shutting stuff down completely." It's just like, really, you can't spare a few personnel to run events at the UFC Apex? It's like you just need this essential personnel. There's nothing going on right now.
Yeah.
Like we're at a literal standstill. And I'm already, because we already have at MMA Freak we have yearly awards. One of our categories is moments.
Mm-hmm.
This is probably gonna be the moment. Like COVID-19 is probably gonna be the moment of 2020 when the world just came to a standstill.
Yeah, I know.
I think it could happen. But Khabib's been saying he's stuck in Dagestan. It's like, well, first of all, why'd you go back to Dagestan in the first place?
This is what I heard.
It's like, dude, you knew all this was happening. You knew you were still fighting. So why are you going back home?
Well, supposedly he went to Abu Dhabi because he thought the fight was going to be there. And I don't know how he ended up in it. I don't know why he went from there to home, but
yeah, that supposedly was one of the plans, but because they were scouting it, but then UAE decided, not to. So it's like, okay, why aren't you going to fly back to? Because he trains out of American Kickboxing Academy. So it's just like, okay, why wouldn't you fly back there? It's like, there is still some travel, not a whole lot, but there's still some travel. It's like, why wouldn't you just fly back to where you're training? Just keep training, and the fight happens. The fight happens. I do think there's going to be some commission that will allow a closed doors event. I do. It's UFC. I do think it's going to happen. It's just, but obviously.
You think it's going to happen on the 18th, or you think it's going to be delayed?
It's still possible that it could happen. I mean, we've had this deadline that's been pushed back a little bit, but I do think it's going to happen. It's just a matter of where and who's going to be on the fight card. Because I think it's like, I really do think Khabib should just fight. It's because they're allowing private flights out of Russia. It's like, just do all the regulations. It's like you can go out just fine.
Yeah.
Well, we'll see how it happens.
We'll see what happens. Yeah.
Khabib's this rather interesting. He's an enigma. He's this. He's this rather interesting guy. It's like it's like before that, he's it's like interesting is the best way I could describe his personality. So we'll see how it goes. We'll just it might happen, it might not happen. Without Khabib, it might just not happen altogether. We'll just have to see, because Bellator did cancel.
A lot of them canceled their events
through to June. So we'll see how that goes.
Yeah.
I would hope that by June this will have blown over and we'll have a little bit more control of the situation.
Keep our fingers crossed.
I don't know about you, but I'm going nuts being stuck in a house. I haven't gone out of the house except for like maybe twice to get food.
I'm gonna be honest. One of the unique ways that I found out an excuse to get out of the house is I will occasionally go Instacarting.
What the hell? What's that?
Instacart. That's one of those. That's that grocery delivery service where you go around and pick deliveries and then deliver it to people's houses.
Oh, okay. I never heard of that.
Which I did do grocery delivery for about 5 years at Bonds, but I was specifically only a picker. I did not actually deliver the groceries unless they were a pickup order. But yeah, so I'm familiar with that. I've kind of been doing that. And then also I've been going for walks, and on occasion I've actually gone to some local businesses to patronize them and just like, I'm going to go buy something and then I'll go out because, the restaurants are still serving. It's just that they may not necessarily be serving. It's like you go in, you get your stuff to get out.
Yeah.
So
what are your thoughts on John Jones, his recent arrest?
John Jones. It's oh my gosh. It's like I'm genuinely like, how hard is it to not get in trouble? How is that difficult? Is that really so difficult? Like how hard is it to really not get in trouble? And the fact that he was able to pull that kind of a plea deal. Now, of note, I was reading into it. I think part of the plea deal, I think it was reading it with TMZ, but supposedly part of that plea deal includes he has to go to rehab. So he actually tried going to rehab before and then came out early saying, "Oh, I don't need any help." It's like, clearly you need help. Clearly you need help.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's just, I just don't know why he keeps getting in trouble. It's like he doesn't really have an excuse. It's like, dude, you've got a wife. I don't know if she's still his girlfriend or if they're actually engaged or they're married. But it's like you've got a woman and kids at home.
Yeah.
It's like you need. It's like, first of all, what kind of an example? This happens multiple times with people. It's like, what kind of example are you setting for your kids?
Yeah, exactly.
It's like, and not to mention, let's remember, he's in his 30s. He's my age. I know I don't look to be in my 30s, but he's in his 30s. It's like, dude, this is not what you should be doing. You've got a wife and kids at home. I was actually reading this I actually watched an interview with Ariel Helwani and Daniel Cormier, and Cormier was like, yeah, I'm home with my kids. It's like like a perfect, and he's just like, I don't. It's like, I'm not happy with this guy's going down like this. It's like I don't. It's like he's a rival, but I'm not. It's like I don't relish this.
Yeah.
Which just goes to show what kind of a man Daniel Cormier is. It's like he's a family man. He's spending time with his wife and his kids. But that may also have to do with the fact that, remember, Daniel Cormier he lost a daughter. It's like nothing's worse for a man than losing a child. So it's like that may give. Well, he wasn't a bad guy to begin with, so that may have brought a different perspective. But still, it's like John Jones. It's just like, dude, you need to get it together. It's like, and this rehab. I really hope he does take advantage of this rehab. It's like, dude, you've got a problem. You've clearly got a problem.
Yeah.
So.
And you think he's going to get the boot or what?
And that's another thing. So we actually, these are the notes that I've been working on. We actually and I'm putting the finishing touches on it. So you've got the exclusive on this. I'm working on the finishing touches for our Decades Award. So and John Jones was voted the Fighter of the Decade. And it's like this happened despite him just going nuts constantly. So, but if you really think about it, he is the only elite fighter who's been on top of. It's like maybe it's possible that if he'd fought more, someone may have actually found a way through his game. But he's
Yeah.
been the only fighter in this past decade who's truly gone undefeated, who's been at the top of the game. The only reason why he, quote unquote, lost the title is because of external factors. So it's like he's just this incredibly talented guy, and it's like something up there just makes him want to get in trouble constantly. It's like, what war? It's like, what about being on top? It's like there's ways to blow off steam. It's like it's understandable. It's like it's like you're constantly being pursued. Okay, find another way to blow steam. It's like go painting. Like I paint. But it's like put on some Bob Ross, throw some paint on a canvas. It's like watch TV. It's like play with your kid. Do something other than get in trouble.
Exactly. Yeah, I agree with you. Yeah, it's crazy. Maybe he's bored or something.
Yeah.
You know.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Let's.
And then I also noticed on the your MMA Freak website, did you guys rank the fighters? Like, how do you guys come up with your ranking system? I think that's your unique ranking system, correct?
So the ranking system is recently we've actually been allowing fans to vote on the ranking system, but the main factor of the ranking system has been that we voted as a the staff votes, cast the votes and tallies the votes based on like giving X number of points, and then that's how we typically do the rankings. Which actually, from my understanding, is how, well, as I recall, like reading earliest with like Yahoo Sports or something like that, maybe it was MMA Junkie, but that's how a lot of other outlets do their rankings, as they do a total tally. Like that's even how the UFC rankings are done. They have like a whole bunch of MMA journalists who submit their rankings, and that's how the
okay, really?
Yeah, that's typically how most news outlets do their rankings, at least in MMA, is that they have the staff vote, and then the averages are how the rankings are determined.
Wow. So what are you guys writing about now, or are you thinking of be writing about if there's no fights going on?
Well, so here's what I've been doing. So around the world of MMA, that's like my weekly column.
Okay.
I've been scraping the bottom of the barrel in finding fights that are actually happen. Because believe it or not, in places like the far-flung, like Eastern Europe and stuff like that, there's actually still fights happening. So I go on SheerDog and Tapology, and I'm letting people know there's still fights happening.
Oh, okay.
It's like they're showing all these people who would be unknown to the American MMA scene, but there's still fights happening. And then I'm finding myself, because around the world of MMA, there's like 3 sections that I typically have. It's like news, or reviews, previews, and news. And I see myself putting out a lot more news just to have something to talk about. That's how I've been keeping busy. And then I still do my Fighter of the Week awards, but I'm of course, like I said, I've been finding myself not being able to talk about a whole lot because there's just not a whole lot to talk about. So that's kind of where we are right now.
Now, do you still, because you said you wrestled in, I guess, high school and college, do you still train some form of martial arts now, or? Well, not now because of the coronavirus. Like, I'm not even training, dude.
I've been, the past few years I've kind of been between my day job. I just haven't had a whole lot of time, but I've been thinking about getting back into it because I moved to the Central Valley, moved to Lemoore, and I'm not that far from West Hills is the local community college with wrestling. I'm like a 5-minute drive, so I'm thinking about maybe getting a hold of the coach there, seeing if I can talk with someone there, talk to him about helping out and rolling around on the mat with the guys once we actually can start rolling around on the mat. I don't know if there's any MMA gyms around. Well, there's got to be because Lemoore, that's where the Tachi Palace is. So there's got to be some MMA gyms around.
Yeah.
But I haven't been looking in depth.
Okay. Yeah. So do you have your own podcast or?
I'd say that the Fire of the Week is maybe the closest thing to the podcast we have right now. We've had a few podcasts over. And I've been involved with a few podcasts over the life of the site. We had, I think, what was just called MMA Freak Radio at the time, which was hosted with Ben and Tiger. But then they went and kind of did their own stuff. We had something called a Freak Cast when I brought in Edson Valenzuela, who I actually met because in order to improve my journalism skills, I actually went to Santa Ana College and took a few journalism classes there. And that's where I met Edson, and I brought him on, and he was a tremendous contributor to the site for a while. But then he went off and kind of started doing his own stuff. But then he started his own podcast called Fight the Podcast, and I was involved for that a little bit. But then because of some stuff that he had going on in life, he kind of he put that on the shelf as well. So I think the closest thing we have is my Fire of the Week segment, which I mainly put on YouTube.
Okay.
Like I said, I just haven't had a whole lot of time to talk about stuff because there just hasn't been a lot going on.
And what's the name of that YouTube channel? Is that MMA Freaks, or is it named after you, or
MMA Freak? I do have my own channel. I do as another hobby. I do my own YouTube channel, but MMA Freak is is our YouTube channel.
Oh, okay. Now, what other you still write for other online news outlets or other than MMA, or?
Right now I'm just working on MMA Freak. I'm somewhat associated with this site called what was it? I think it's called the Hashtag Show. I'm somewhat affiliated with them, so if I wanted to, I could do some other articles for them. They have a little bit more of a varied lineup, but I haven't. Right, and my primary focus is MMA Freak right now.
Okay. Now, if Khabib, getting back to the UFC 249, if Khabib, let's say they have the event and Khabib is out, who do you think is going to fight Ferguson? Do you think it's going to be Ganji?
Well, let's.
Said that it would be him.
Yeah, I've been seeing him as the main person, and Gaethje was talked about how he wants the next shot, and he'd be very upset if Conor leapfrogs him. So if there's anyone who's probably going to be a replacement, it'll probably be Gaethje. Conor's been brought up, but Conor's in lockdown in Ireland, so he's not going anywhere.
Yeah, I hear you. Now, if Ganji were to fight Ferguson, who do you think would win that one?
That's a good one because Gaethje always goes in there and brings it. It's like there's a reason why in this MMA Freak Awards he appears a few times in the Fight of the Decade contest or category, but El Cucuy, Tony Ferguson, is really, really funky, and he's on that, what was it, like a 10-fight win streak or something like that? Some kind of crazy, like, win streak right now. I don't know. It would be hard to say. I'd like to say just from the technical aspect, maybe being Ferguson, because they're both, we're talking about two fighters who are primarily stand-up fighters but do have a ground game. Whereas with if Khabib, Khabib is definitely a wrestler. There's no ifs, ands, or buts about it. He's a wrestler. So, if you just look at all of his fights, they go to the ground. So I'd like to say that if there's anywhere that it's going to go, it's probably going to be to I'd have to say if it's Gaethje versus Ferguson, I'd say Ferguson, but I wouldn't be surprised if Gaethje won either, because like I said, he goes in there and he's just
Yeah.
it's
Now,
like,
if Khabib is able to make it, who do you think will win, Khabib or Ferguson?
I'd say Khabib.
Okay.
It's just
Yeah.
his ground. It's like you have yet to see someone who can stop his ground game. The only person who could stop his ground game would be another wrestler, and realistically, there isn't anyone in the lightweight division who's at that caliber. So if anyone is, if Khabib shows up, it's Khabib.
Yeah.
And if they throw in a substitute with it's regardless of who it is, I'd say probably Ferguson. But it also depends on who he goes against, because as we've learned in any MMA, anyone can win on any given day. So
Yeah, that's true. That's true. Now, got two more questions for you. First one is, who's your favorite MMA fighter? And two, who do you think is the greatest of all time MMA fighter? Overall, doesn't have to be pro weight division.
Well, let's see. My favorite MMA fighter historically, it was Randy Couture. So, but active right now it would be Demetrius Johnson.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah.
Well, because it's like, even though his highlight reel it's like you look at the number of fights that he's fought and, the number of title fights, even though he went the distance a whole lot, it's like the guy always went in there and delivered. And I think it was very premature of the UFC to, especially given hindsight. Even at the time, I think it was a little premature for them to do the trade with ONE FC.
Yeah. I still don't understand why they did that. And then they got the Ben Askren, and he's out. He's retired now.
Yeah, Ben Askren went 1-2, and that first one was a controversial finish. And then, oh my gosh, that flying KO. It's like I looked at the replay of that, and I was just like Ben, you were an Olympic level wrestler. You were a multiple-time NCAA division champion, and you did the one thing that we are taught as wrestlers not to do, which is he saw Jorge coming in, and he put his head down. It's like you're supposed to keep eye contact. You're supposed to be looking at your opponent the whole time. He put his head down, and that's why he didn't see the knee. Is because he took his eyes off his opponent. The one most basic mistake in wrestling, and he did it in a fight, and it cost him his undefeated career.
I know. Wow. So if anybody,
an interesting thing. Sorry, that was actually that and the Valentina Jessica Eye knockout were actually last year were front runners for the MMA Freak Knockout of the Year. It ended up going up to Jorge, but we did, like I said, we just did the MMA Decades Award, 2010 Decade Award, and the winner, it was again close between the Valentina IKO and the Masvidal Askren KO, but this time it was actually Valentina that came out.
Oh wow!
Yeah.
Wow.
Well, you just think about that KO. It's like she was setting it up, and then Jessica thought that it was going for the liver, and it put her out. Valentina was ready to follow up, and then she realized, oh, she's just out, so she just ran over.
Yeah. Well, I think
but yeah, just watching that fight, I was just like, at first when Masvidal ran out, my thought was, oh, Ben's just going to pick him up and slam him, but no, Ben Ben went down on his, got knocked down. I was just thinking, and then I was like, what happened? But then I look at the replay and I was like, oh my gosh, the one thing you're not supposed to do in wrestling, you did in an MMA fight and cost you in the match.
Exactly.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah, we're running out of time here, buddy. But anyway, so if anybody who's watching the show and is listening to it when it's in its podcast format, if they had to get in touch with you, what's the best way to get in touch with you?
I reply to Twitter pretty easily. So if DM me or put me out on Twitter. But yeah, that's the easiest way to get a hold of me personally. You could put you could try replying to some of the MMA stuff. But you also asked me who the greatest fighter of all time was. I'd say that's a toss-up between the Last Emperor and Fedor Emelianenko and Anderson Silva. Of course, both of them have kind of gone a little downhill since then. John Jones, I'd say, definitely still has the potential to be the greatest.
Yeah.
I don't think he's quite there yet because, like I said, his out-of-ring antics have been a bit of a problem.
Yeah. What's your Twitter handle?
At Matthew Salzer is my personal Twitter handle. At MMA Freakout is also our is the website Twitter handle. And at Matthew Salzer is also my my Instagram. So
okay.
And then like I said, for my my personal, it's like if someone wants to see anything not MMA related, Matthew Salzer. Okay. My YouTube channel where I put a variety of stuff out.
All right, cool. All right, Matt, it was great having you on the show. All right, everybody, we'll be back. Don't forget to hit the website. It's MMA-freak.com.
Right, because at the time, I think MMA Freak was not available, so they had put the dash in there. I don't know if it's still not available, but
that's cool. All right, everybody, we'll be back after this short break.
All right, guys, we'll be right back, but first a word from our sponsors.
During World War II, I was in prison in a Nazi camp. I died there, or so I thought. Instead, I became a creature of the dark world. Now I fight to protect my daughter. I am Marcus the Vampire. The book is now available at Amazon and BarnesandNoble.com and RetortoFamilyBooks.com.
All right, guys, this week's episode is done on a live show, but if you happen to be listening to this in the podcast format, keep listening because there's more content to follow. All right, guys, see you guys next week.